Can we swoop for Leek Aleer? Swoop, like the Pies for Simpkin? A lot of swooping.
And Stevens lined him up too. Let there be no mistake about that. Stevens went at him at 100 miles an hour. He get another go. And he grabs him. He's grabbed. Play on for holding the man.
Welcome back to Further North, guys. So much stuff going on. We had to get on a pod on a Friday night, out for Saturday for you guys. Really quickly, straight off the bat, hello, Chief. He's back when stuff's going down. This is the guy we need to go to. Don't tell Joel because I say similar to him, but he's a draft man. You know what I mean? And you're the guy who knows people from other teams, which is not my strong suit. Hello, Chief.
Yeah, it isn't your strong suit, is it, Josh? We were just mentioning some players before and you go, I don't know who that guy is. I don't know.
Curto, I think never heard of him.
Your suburb knowledge is actually slightly worse than your
settle down, mate.
Team knowledge.
But my burger knowledge is top tier.
Your burger knowledge is top tier. Yeah. I agree with that. You know what? It's been a really busy week this week, Josh, but most people go out and have a few drinks, maybe have a meal. But what we do is we come together on a Friday night and we talk about the North Melbourne Football Club, who aren't even playing at the moment.
No, not even playing. But is it busier than the season? It feels like it at the moment. So we've got a lot of things to talk about, which is exciting. We're going to get to Aleer. We're going to get to Simpkin. We're going to get to all that sort of stuff. But first off, what I'm planning to do, and I want your feedback on this. If you're watching on YouTube, please put in the comments below. Subscribe while you're there. But give me your thoughts. Thursday nights, I'm planning to do every Thursday is going to be a live stream fan night. You can click the link and join me. You can put your comments in there. We might get Chief on. We might get John. We might get James back on. I know James is listening to this. Someone will come on, but would you guys like that? Every Thursday fan night around 8 p.m. and then the podcast will come out on the weekends. You're a listener of the pod, Chief. What do you think of something like that?
I think it'd be really well attended by the North Faithful. I think it's a really good way to keep everybody engaged over the off-season. I mean, there's still 21st of November is when the Ashes start, and I'm just hanging out till then, basically. So trade period will get me halfway.
Yeah, Pat Cummings will be watching that from the sidelines as well. You and him can hang out, watch the Scotty Boland take fifer in day one of the Boxing Day test. That'll be exciting.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm only a provisional member at the MCC, so we don't get into day 3, which is a complete joke. Also, I feel like Scotty Boland's going to get absolutely pasted this summer, unfortunately. So.
Well, good luck in the comments with that one. Any Scotty Boland fans out there, you go at Chief.
I love Scotty Boland. I love Scotty Boland.
I hear him praying for a downfall.
He bowls line and length, which is great, but against the English batters, they just love line and length. They'll just smash him.
Bazball will reign supreme. But look, this isn't a cricket podcast, Chief. We've got to get into what's going on. So fan night, Thursdays, 8 o'clock. Let me know what you think down below. If you want that, you guys can interact with the pod. We can get into it. Anyway, Leek Aleer. Let's get into this. So the Saints, it was all done. It was locked. They just had to finalise the deal. It's fallen apart. When it did fall apart, the North fans jumped on it and we all started posting. Now, what I got told today from people at the barbershop and after reading up a little bit about it, it seems to be a 3rd round pick was on offer. They wanted a 2nd round pick, and that was the block that happened. I don't know if it has anything to do with the Flanders deal because I believe Flanders was a 2nd round pick swap for that deal. So maybe that hindered it. But Leek Aleer has definitely been probably the first. Him and De Koning were definitely the first 2 I heard about when the Saints were going on this rampage of signing everybody's players. I guess just give me your rundown on your knowledge on why the Leek Aleer deal has fallen apart, and then we'll go on to potentially North swooping in after that.
Yeah, there's a lot of different elements to the deal, unfortunately, Josh. And ironically, I think, as you pointed out, Leek Aleer and De Koning are the 2 players that they were furthest down the road with. They wined and dined Leek Aleer for 2 years, supposedly, according to his manager, and by all accounts had essentially settled on a deal, which is somewhere in the vicinity of $700,000 or $800,000 a year, which for a guy who's 21 or 22 is huge money, especially coming from where he is at the moment. He's probably less than the average wage, and he's going to go to almost double the average wage. So it was a huge opportunity for him, and the Saints have obviously thrown a lot of money to get his attention, and these things are planned from a very long way out. You know, obviously they've been planning for this for 2 years for Leek Aleer to come in and be the cover essentially for Cal Wilkie. And my understanding was it was actually a swap of picks. So it was going to be something like Leek Aleer goes to the Saints and a third rounder for a second rounder and a future second rounder is what the Saints want. Is what GWS want. But the Saints were only willing to give up a future third rounder, which to me, after doing so much work on a deal for 2 years and then coming back and saying, well, no, we don't have the draft capital to be able to do this deal. Like it's essentially a future third versus a future second is embarrassing. It's duplicitous. It's probably one of the worst trade misses that I've ever heard of. And the Saints will not live this down. This is one of the worst trade non-deals that I think we've ever seen.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, look, different people put different capital into draft picks. A third round pick seems, I know he's not the most proven player ever. He's had moments and looks like he's got a lot of talent, a good size, can jump at that football. A third round pick seems well unders, especially when you look at next year's draft has a bit about it, but then anything beyond then, you know, you're starting to get into Tassie territory at that point. A couple of drafts to go anyway. So a third round pick just seems unders to me, just for a player who's played, let me have a look. I think it's 13 games this year, 8 the year before, and obviously not much. So he's only played 25 games in his career. But when you think about it, 24 years old, 194 centimeters, I believe more of an intercept defender, but can work on that side of his game. Do you think that's unders? Like, surely this deal should have been one that was done in the first couple of days with the amount of time. Like you've said, they've been whining and dining, and this should have been done well before Flanders and anything like that. And do you think that the Flanders deal has inhibited the Leek Aleer deal?
Well, I don't think it's the Flanders deal, to be honest. I think they always earmarked their first top 10 pick for Flanders, to be honest, which, again, I would say is massive overs. That's me personally. I think what Flanders gives versus what a potential top 10 draft pick will give, I think, you know, I think they've paid overs for that. That said, the draft isn't as good. So you kind of weigh it up, right? I think they already earmarked that. I think their bigger problem is that there are other deals going down which haven't gone their way. So the two that I look at, doesn't look like Rowan Marshall's going to leave. I think they banked on Rowan Marshall leaving, and they also banked on Jack Steele leaving.
Interesting.
They've got no interest in Jack Steele for obvious reasons. I love Jack Steele as a player, but I understand with the way that modern football is going that they're going for runners rather than sort of hard in and under guys like Jack Steele. And then the Marshall one, they're just playing hardball on for whatever reason, and they are going to still have Marshall on the books. And Marshall's probably on, you know, that $800,000 a year. So if Marshall goes, that opens up your space for Leek Aleer. But from just a pure draft capital perspective, if you're going to pay someone $700,000 or $800,000 and you're essentially giving up, you're haggling between a future second and a future third, like that's the value. That's ridiculous. Like, do you value him or do you not? And they've
100%.
basically sold this dream to Leek Aleer, who's clearly all in. Apparently, he was very emotional when he said he was going to go to the GWS boys. And you've sold him this dream only to pull the rug out from underneath him because you're haggling over a future second versus future third. Like, it's not like they were poles apart. It's not like it was, we think he's worth 2 first rounders and you think he's worth a third rounder. It's not that. It's a future second versus future third. It's insanity. Sauce and Grubby Allen need to be held to account for this. And you know what? I love the Saints because, you know, they're a small club, long premiership drought, 1966, and I was rooting for them. I actually like what they're doing.
Yeah, so do I.
But when but they turned heel so quickly with this deal. But we could be the beneficiaries, Josh.
Well, this is the next point. So Brady Rawlings has said, and I'll read some of his quotes here. We've been in touch with Leek's manager. He is pretty disappointed. I did answer his phone call. So, I don't know if that's a misspell there. I don't know who's called whose manager. Brady initially has said he's reached out, and then it sounded like Leek's manager has reached out to Brady. So I'm not exactly sure. We have discussed it as a club. We are still doing the work on it. It was one that obviously caught a few clubs by surprise. We followed Leek since he played at Central District in the Sandful and followed his career at the Giants, and we've always admired him as a player. But given he was committed to St Kilda, we hadn't really thought too much of it. Now that that's changed, I'm sure there's a few clubs that are probably considering him. That was Brady Rawlings. So, you're Brady Rawlings, Chief. Are you going balls to the wall to get Aleer into North Melbourne?
I mean, I don't necessarily think we need to go balls to the wall to get him to North Melbourne if they're arguing over a second round draft.
We've got two of them. They can have one if they like.
Well, that's kind of my point. And I guess Brady's made some good points there. There was an assumption from everybody in the football world that he would go to St Kilda. So they've done no work on whether Leek Aleer would work in our system and what type of person he is and the money, the draft capital that we have to give up. All that stuff is worked out months in advance, and they haven't been able to do that work. So I would assume Brady, etc., are feverishly working tonight. I think it's burning the midnight oil for Brady, Will Thursfield, Todd Viney to try and work out whether this is a deal that they can get done.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, a late night for Brady. It's going to be a lot of late night Triple J heavy metal radio or late night SBS2, which we know can get a little bit raunchy. So hopefully Rawlings is up and about. But look, does he fit in our system? Is this a player? Where does he fit? Do you want him? Do you want him at North Melbourne? If you were going to say, let's go and get him, what reasoning do you think? Where does he fit?
I have thought about this a few times, Josh, and I think there's a few ways to break it down. I think the first one is to say, okay, well, he is essentially a sort of a peel-off intercept defender, and Charlie Comben is a peel-off intercept defender. So we don't need him. That's the easy way to look at it, and I can understand that. But the second way I looked at it was, if we had a game tomorrow, would Leek Aleer be in the 23?
Yes.
And I would probably say yes. So, I think he's probably ahead of Core. His form arguably is, I don't even think arguably. I think he's better than Logue. So it's probably the fantasy trio, the trio that we've all waited for, which is Pink, Comben, and Leek Aleer. I mean, I think that would work. Now, people would make the point that he's not a one-on-one defender, and I don't disagree with that. But I think even so, I would prefer him playing on a person than the next person. Yeah, the next.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, hoping that a Will Dawson, which Brady did speak about, and we'll get to Brady's comments as well about trusting the back five. That's what we're moving forward with. He's clear, and he mentioned Will Dawson in that, and that they expect a jump from him, and that's what they'd be hoping for. I would be very happy going into next year. I understand Dawson is raw, but with a Dawson Comben and say you put Aleer there, that instantly makes our backline a lot better. And if Dawson isn't up to scratch, Pink is more than capable. We showed last year he's a good AFL player and can be consistent. One for you that is going to anger the comments: who is going to be better next year, Logue or Aleer?
Oh, I mean, obviously, it's. I don't have a crystal ball, Josh. I wish I did.
You do. That's why you're on this pod, mate. That old Scotty was up there. That's a crystal ball. Right now. You're my crystal ball.
I think so. Yeah, I think he plays ahead of Logue. I don't like. So I think if we take a step back and we go, okay, what is the best football that we've seen from either of those players? The best football I've seen from Leek Aleer was a game down in Geelong 2 years ago. a year and a half ago, and he dominated that game against a very good Geelong team. Took a couple of intercept marks to save the game. If that's the Leek Aleer, like that's the ceiling, that's much better than anything Logue's produced in the past.
Mm-hmm.
So based on that and based on his age, I think he's the one to take us forward if we can get the deal done. I've waxed and waned on this a couple of times. And maybe that was copium based on me. I think if anybody's heard me talk on the podcast before, I was very keen on us going for him earlier.
Yes.
But when we didn't, I've kind of gone into copium mode and said, wow, we don't need him. He's just an intercept defender. We've got one of them. Why do we need him? But obviously, emotion has affected me there. And I do think if we can get this deal done, he will be an upgrade.
So Leek Aleer comes in hypothetically, right? And we need someone to be that big body defender. Do you believe in Charlie Comben to be able to do that? Because I think first year he played defense, all intercepting, one-on-one was quite poor. I don't remember any conversations last year of anyone talking about Charlie Comben one-on-one. I think he improved massively. Year 3, Charlie Comben defender, getting his body right, 200 centimeters, 100-kilo player. Can he be that? Can he keep developing and be that guy? Or could Leek Aleer do that? I mean, Leek Aleer doesn't have quite the size, but, would you back one of those guys to be able to play more of a one-on-one role? And I'll preface this before I let you go by saying the way football is going, you don't really need 2 big body one-on-one defenders like you used to. A lot of the time it's a key target with mediums and smalls around them these days with the pace and running that football is turning into right now. Which one of those guys would you pick to be that guy who could develop in that as that role if you think one of them could?
Yeah, I think Comben's the natural one to do it. Because I look at Aleer and I think he has the natural athleticism and speed to play that intercept defender role a little bit better than Chom. That said, I do think that Chom can probably reads the ball a little bit better, I guess. And when he is, I think we know that when he is loose, he is excellent at doing that job. Mm-hmm. And I take people back to the last 3 minutes of the Brisbane Lions game down in Tassie to see Comben at his absolute best. Yes. He really got himself in the right spaces.
The switch that set us up especially as well.
Exactly. He got himself in the hole and was able to read the ball. He did a great job of that. But you are making a really great point. I mean, if we go back and just look at the Brisbane Lions, they just won a premiership with Harris Andrews and then Ryan Lester and Gardner as their 3 key tools. So apart, Andrews is a gun player and he'll go down as a first ballot Hall of Famer. But those other two dudes are not that. Credit to them, though. They won a flag. So
fantastic.
You have to take your hat off to them. That's system. But I guess my point is that you can mix and match and roles will probably change as time goes on. I personally want to see Will Dawson step up to be that third sort of plays on the tall that plays on the monsters. And admittedly, he's still 20, so he's still pretty young.
I don't even know if he's 20 yet. I think he's still 19. Got the braces strapped on still. So, we drafted him when he was 16. Obviously late into his 16th year on the planet. But, I agree with you. I hope he can. I'm thinking about the forward lines of those top teams up there. And apart from Geelong, you look at how Collingwood operate with maybe one key target up there and then all their buzzy, sort of forwards around. Brisbane do the same thing. Hawthorn can do the same thing. Mitch Lewis came back and they rolled with the 2, but a lot of the last, 18 months to 2 years of the Hawks have been pretty good. They've had Chol up there with a bunch of people running around at his feet and a Gunston, who's not that key position player. So with the way that a lot of these successful teams are playing, the way footy's moving, a couple of guys who can intercept, who can sort of chop out one-on-one when they need to, and hopefully a Dawson comes into play on a Tilthorpe or a Mackay or whoever, your King or someone like that, that might be the go. Do you think we can get this deal done? How confident are you in your guts, in your mind? Do you think we can do this? Because I've felt like over the last week, nothing's going to happen. Brady's comments suggested that. And once again, we'll get into those in a second. But I've sort of resigned to the fact that not much is happening for us. An opportunity has now sprung. Do you trust North Melbourne to be able to swoop in and get this done? Do you think we're going to do it?
I don't think we've shown that we can do that in the past, to be honest. I don't think we've shown that we can call audible, so to speak. We can make quite important decisions within a short space of time. I just don't see why we wouldn't try it. We've got the cap space. We've got the capital. It's an area that we need is depth in that back line. So I just don't know why you wouldn't do it. And I don't know if there are any other suitors out there for him. I mean, the natural teams that would pick him up are obviously St Kilda. They're not going down that path supposedly now. But then you've also got the Bulldogs, who are looking for a key defender as well. Not that style of key defender, but looking for a key defender nonetheless. So that would be the only other team really that I would think would be relatively interested. And obviously the Giants. So the Giants have offered him a 3-year contract at minimal money. So you would think that we could entice him with $500,000 or $600,000 a year potentially, which we've got more than enough room in the cap to do that.
Absolutely. And one thing I've got on the list of questions here is, why won't North overpay for some players? Because we've heard about the Marcus Windhager. He was telling everyone he was going to North. St Kilda come in and up that offer. And North seemingly seemed to just back out and go, all right, well, we're not going any further with that. I understand years on the deal and all that sort of thing, but North seem to have this reluctancy to go over any sort of threshold that they've initially set. I personally think that's slightly negligent. I think if we've got a bit of cash to throw around and we're a club that isn't just going to entice everyone to come down, throw it around a little bit. An extra $100,000 or so in the grand scheme of things isn't that bad. We've got money. The report with Simpkin, once again, we're going to get onto that. We don't need to move him for salary cap reasons. That suggests we've got plenty in the cap. Who are we paying? I know you've got to pay 90% of your salary or around about there, but we have to have money available, mate. We absolutely have to. There's so much money in this game now. Do you think North will go and ever swing it around like that a little bit? Or do you think we're always going to be that team that goes, well, we're offering him this, and if it's a cent more, we're backing out, even if that makes our club, like you pointed out before, next year Aleer in our backline makes us better. Do you think North are willing to stretch the boat out a little bit to make that happen?
I think I said it last podcast where I thought that now is not the time to do that. I think the time for that is in the future. And also, what players are you going to overpay? It's a very simple question. I think we've taken a more circumspect approach after our issues in the late 20 teens. So to just take people back there, we chased, from memory, three players. Dustin Martin, where we offered him a king's ransom. And he was very close. He was very close to coming, actually. And then we offered Josh Kelly money.
Yep.
There was a little bit of a connection there with his dad. We offered Gaff a huge amount of money in 2018.
Yeah.
And then what do? We go, we can't get Gaff. Let's get Gaff from Timu in the form of Jared Polek.
Yes.
We'll still pay him $700,000 a year. We're going to pay Gaff $900,000 to $1 million, but let's just pay him $700,000 a year to really make sure he comes. And I think, and also Stevenson is the other one.
I was going to point out Stevenson. Yeah.
So we've overpaid for mediocre players in the past, and obviously you pay for that at the end of the deal when they're not performing, and then you've got to try and get them off the books. And you're seeing that with Clayton Oliver as a great example of that. Yes. Is that they've overpaid for him. He's not worth as much as what he was when they signed the contract. It's like negative equity in your home. You know, your home depreciates, and then you're left with negative equity, which you have to pay out yourself. And that's what they're having to do. They're having to pay half his salary, $700,000 a year, for him to play against you. So whilst I agree with what you're saying, I'm not going to pay Marcus Windhager $800,000 a year because I want him at my club. Like, I'll pay him $600,000, and if the Saints want him so much, then they're going to pay more than that, and that's what happened. And I just don't think he's the player that we pay overs with. If there is a player, now here's a question for you. I've actually got some free agents here, Josh.
Okay.
2 for me, or 3 for me, really are ones that I'm interested in. Zach Bailey, you pay overs for him. He would be 1.3 million. Butters, he might be 1.5 million. And then the final one is Ben King from the Gold Coast. That's another million and a bit player.
Yeah.
So for those guys, yes, pay them the money for sure, because you have some level of surety about what they're going to produce. I don't think the same can be said for the Marcus Windhager types.
That's fair enough. Yeah, I agree. And we don't want to get in that sort of situation again. The other side of me, the devil on my shoulder goes, well, what if, 50, 70K is the difference between us getting a Leek Aleer who could potentially be a really good player, but then hindsight will always, fix those problems for you a little bit. So, look, it's a hard one. I think what I'm trying to say is I hope North can be aggressive without being negligent. And I don't know if they've found that line exactly yet. I feel like they've either been aggressive or negligent. And if we could ever try and nail that right in the middle, and that's the goal for every club, right? That's where I really want them to be. So, look, we'll see how it is. Let's talk about some Brady Rawlings comments before the Leek Aleer stuff broke, right? Brady Rawlings was getting interviewed at the start of the trade period and basically said, we're backing the 5 key defenders we've got on our list. Obviously, the Leek Aleer situation will change that. That's completely fair. I would hope he doesn't go, oh, no, I already said that, so now we can't go out for Leek Aleer. So what did you feel as a fan when you heard Brady Rawlings say that? Do you come from the side of internal improvement is definitely the go for North? I think we've got the guys on this list to improve enough next year? Or did you act like most of the internet and especially Facebook who said, oh my God, we are the worst club ever. We're going to win 10 more spoons?
I think it's worthwhile for people taking a step back and understanding what we're trying to achieve in these trade periods. And quite clearly what you're trying to achieve is a better team. And that might seem obvious. But part of that is bargaining power and positioning. And if anybody has read up on things like game theory,
here we go. We're going deep now.
You've got to represent one thing so that people think that that's where you're at, and then potentially that means that down the track you can use that position to your advantage. Now, is Brady using game theory? I really doubt it. I think he just genuinely thinks that our 5 defenders are good enough. No, I think what I'm trying to say is that he's just playing his cards close to his chest so he doesn't give any intel out to other clubs about who we're going to chase potentially. So that's the first thing. And that's if you listen to the comments from most of the list managers, it doesn't matter who it is, it's very generic. They give very little away. If anything, they're actually playing a little bit of misdirection. If you heard Grubby Allen said, "Oh, we're actually going to go after more people." Nah, 5's not enough. We need more. We'll get 8. We'll get 10. Who cares?
Why not?
He was saying that, and I think that was obviously misdirection, right? So I think that's what Brady was doing, and I think that Brady will be open to drafting in more key position talent for our backline. The other part of your question, do I think that we'll improve with that current backline? I think we will. I think that we'll still be able to compete. I still think that there's plenty of improvement in Chom for sure. Will Dawson's still, 13 years old, as you said.
That's right.
And Tobias Pink is just getting a foothold in the AFL.
Just getting the party started, mate. That's what he's doing.
Exactly. And the final one is, I actually find these podcasts funny because I speak about Logue more than I speak about any other player.
My next question's about Logue, so lucky you.
So my thing about Logue is, and I've said this many times before, I think his ceiling is actually pretty good.
Yep.
I think he can be really, really good. And I think we've seen in fits and starts that he can play quite well. And we've talked about making sure that he has the triple ristretto before he goes out to play so that he's switched on and he's buzzing. And when he does that, he's actually a really good player, and he's very assertive. He can take a really, really good mark. He's not bad by foot. And so that's the Griffin Logue. If he continues to bring that, that's what we want. And obviously, he has been cruelled by injury to a certain extent. Hopefully this preseason, he can get a full preseason under his belt, uninterrupted. He comes back lean, super confident. And I think, with the exception of Aleer, I think he's probably the third tall, I guess, at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's fair. I mean, look, that was my next question. What is your starting three? If everyone's fit, everyone's healthy, ready to go, who is your three key defenders to go into round one with next season?
I think it has to be Common is the first picked because he's our best key defender at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
I think Pink is the second.
Ooh.
And I think of the defenders we've got at the moment, it's Logue or Dawson. And you can kind of pick your poison there. As in, if Will Dawson has a really big preseason, if he puts on a little bit of size, if he gets a little bit more confident, I think he's a monster, and I think he could potentially take that position away from Logue. But at the moment, I think Logue would be probably slightly ahead potentially. Okay. And then if Aleer comes in, Aleer would be that guy.
Fair enough. It's going to be interesting. I mean, internal improvement is something we've really got to hope for. We're putting a lot of, cards on the table for Dawson here, and there's a lot of hopes and dreams resting on that young man's shoulders. As I said before, he's about 13 years old. So, look, a 200 centimeter, it sounds pretty good, on paper, but it's not. I don't know. I love Will Dawson, and I really hope that he can be that big-bodied monster defender that can play, on Kings and Shannon Neal in the future. We saw what he did, right, against Darcy. On paper, Dawson, Comben, and Logue is probably mine I would like to go with. But I completely agree with you. Like, Toby Pink is probably, barring a monster preseason from Dawson, is probably the one to go with there. But I think if we're going in with Comben, Logue, Pink, we're going to be left wanting more from our off-season. So I really hope this Leek Aleer thing can get done. I would also suggest, and just from conversations at the barbershop today, and I know there's no source in this, it's just conversation. Every club wants Leek Aleer right now. Like, every fan is going, we could get him. The Bombers, every Bombers fan I talked to today, absolutely, let's go get him. Collingwood fans want him. I talked to multiple Collingwood fans today, like, let's go get him. You know what I mean? So
for sure,
we're just one of the fish in the sea for this man. And look, I hope Clarko and Brady are up watching late night SBS, forming a plan to get this guy to the North Melbourne Football Club. Let's go on to some Jai Simpkin stuff, because this is the other thing that's been rolling around the last couple of days. Simpkin to Collingwood. Interesting. Very, very interesting stuff. All of a sudden, it's gone from no one wants Simpkin. Wayne Carey's whinging about it on Sam Newman's podcast. Kane Corns is whinging about it on all the stuff he does. And then bang, all of a sudden, there actually are suitors, if not a suitor. It's an interesting one. I think he would go straight into Collingwood's midfield personally. I don't know if that's me overrating him a little bit as a North fan, but I look at maybe the age of some of their midfielders, and I think he probably gets his way in there. Clearly, there's an interest from Collingwood, and I doubt they'd be pursuing him if they're not going to get plenty of midfield minutes. The rumoured thing that North want back is 2 first-round picks. Now, we know we're not going to get that for him, but obviously we've got to go out there and say things like that. It's like bargaining for your bintang singlet in Thailand. Or Bali. This is what you've got to do. You've got to start high, and you've got to get the price to where you want it. So what are we doing here? Is this a good play? Do you think this is smoke and mirrors? How do you feel as a North Melbourne fan about the Jai Simpkin to Collingwood stories that are rumbling on?
First off, from Jai's perspective, this might seem harsh, but I would 100% go to Collingwood tomorrow if I was him. I would, and I know there's a lot of North fans out there who'd see that as sacrilege, but if someone could said to Jai, who's not seen any success, I don't know how many total games he's won in his career, but it's like less than 20, I think. And you could say to him, you can go to Collingwood tomorrow and you could play on the G on Anzac Day. You could play Queen's birthday, you could play in front of an average crowd of 60,000 people a week. I would jump at that if I was him. I really would. And that's just not being disrespectful for North Melbourne. I'm a North Melbourne fan. But if I was him, he's absolutely gagging for that success. And that's what he would get at Collingwood. I mean, the second part to it is would he step into Collingwood's midfield? You hit the nail on the head. There's no way that they would be willing to pay $1 million to a bloke who's going to play VFL. So they've clearly got a role in mind for him, and they are saying that they will pay his full contract, which I found a bit strange, to be honest. It just goes to show how desperate they are for a midfielder. I mean,
which isn't probably the area off the top of my head I would have thought they'd be most desperate for. But I understand Sidebottom and Pendlebury are aging.
Yeah, and look, there's other guys like Ned Long is in there, Will Parker,
Crisp.
They've got a few other Crisp players. Yeah, plays a little bit of halfback, a little bit of mid. Degoe obviously is aging, turning 30 this year and on big money. So they actually, apart from Nick, they don't have any really kind of reliable midfielders. Like Long has been better this year, but they just don't have the reliability. And I think that's probably what they're looking for in Jai, is a guy who can play midfield and a guy who can give Nick Dacos a little bit of a chop out so he can play outside a little bit more, which makes sense. Now, in terms of us putting forward the proposal of 2 first-round draft picks, I mean, we actually talked about this in the last podcast. I personally think, all things being equal on an open market, he's probably worth a back end of first, early second round pick, just purely based on the player he is right now.
Yeah.
But that's not how trades work. Trades work on value that the trading team assigns to that player, and also the value that the team who wants him assigns to that player. And so clearly we think that he's worth that much, or maybe a bit less, but that's the opening bit. And then it's just a matter of how much Collingwood think he's worth. And the interesting thing to me, Josh, is I don't see how Collingwood can get this deal done. I just can't. Where is the trade capital going to come from? If they're going to, I think that they're going to try and do, I assume, is that they did change the rules this year so that they could trade even further into the future with draft picks. And maybe that's what they're going to use as capital to come in and get Jai. But I just don't see how they can get this deal done unless they trade a piece from their team, which I can't see them doing.
Well, yeah, that sort of leads into the next question of what would you want in return? Or is there something is there a way, we're our heads of the trade machine right now, but what do you think would be sort of fair? I mean, I've been pretty vocal on many podcasts about I'm a bit over draft picks. I don't know why we always have to trade players for picks. What happened to trading players for players? If they want him, sure. And I haven't looked through their list very much. I've basically got straight in from work and we're doing this pod. So, is there something on their list they could package with a pick or something like that? Why do you think North is valuing picks so much with where we're at as a football club? Isn't it really time to get some players who are ready to perform when they come straight across?
Yeah, it's a great point. I think in the back of my mind, what I think they'll do, this is the back of my mind, is hoard picks for some trading in the future. Because what you're going to have to do to get a Butters or to get a Bailey or one of these types of players is stump up quite serious draft capital. And that's what we're seeing with some of the other deals that are going down at the moment. Whether it's Petrarca, he's going to be probably 2 top 8 draft picks. I mean, if that's what it takes to get that sort of player, maybe that's what we're hoarding for. And it's kind of like a more of a futures market. The alternative is, yes, we can obviously take the players at Collingwood, and I just don't see a player on their list who is going to come over. What do we really need? We need, so I'll phrase it in a different way. What do we need from Collingwood that would outweigh losing Jai, if that makes sense? Because Jai Simpkin is a top 23 player in our club. Like, he starts on the ground. People can argue this till the end of as long as they want. He is a starting midfielder / winger in our team.
Yeah, absolutely.
And for that reason, if he goes out, we will lose something from that. Now, maybe we can make up for it. Maybe Foss steps in there or Dersma steps in there or whatever. But right now, he goes out, we lose. What does Collingwood have that would make up for that? And the answer is they don't have that much. What we would want is probably someone from defence. And they don't have that. They've got Moore. They've got Howe. They just got rid of a guy called Charlie Dean, who was like their fourth guy. They've got Frampton, and they've got forgot the guy's name. He's a left footer, but anyway, they've got another guy there who's coming off a busted knee. So he wouldn't take any of those guys. Like they're not going to trade Moore, obviously. And then Howe's 37 years old. So they're not going to. We're not going to accept him. So my point is that they don't have any players that we can get. Now the exception to that, Josh, is Bobby Hill. And the question I would have: would you take Bobby Hill and a pick for Jai Simpkin?
Yeah, I think so. Off the top of my head, I think yes, and then I sort of start to think more. Bobby Hill's the perfect player we need, right? In that forward line. That's the last piece, I would argue, for the forward line that we need. I know Darling has probably got a year left in him, but there's players on the list, I believe, that can fill those roles. Yes. I'm trying to think of a reason why not.
But we just got Charlie Spargo.
Well,
so it plays a forward mid role. So I'm just putting that out there. Like if anybody out there in the comment section can suggest some players from Collingwood that would be worth it, go ahead, please. And I'd be interested to listen. But the reality is it's going to be draft picks or nothing probably from them. I don't think they're willing to give up Bobby Hill because they see him, they value him really highly, despite the personal problems that he had at the back end of last year. They are committed to him. So that to me, it just leaves they can only give us draft picks. And like, I feel like we just hold them over a barrel for it, to be honest.
I'm looking at their playing list right now, and I'm just looking for anyone that says key defender on it here. And the only other person that I don't really know much about is Reef McInnes.
Reef McInnes is the one. Yeah, that's the one I was talking about.
Yeah.
But Reef has played a handful of games at AFL level. He's also a key forward who's transitioning to key back, and I think he played 1 or 2 games at the start of this year, and then did his knee. So he's not the answer.
Mm. Would you take a Frampton?
No.
Obviously, it's going to be more. I'm not saying a straight swap, but as a player, as part of a package, a key defender who obviously has been very much hated for a long time, but has become almost loved at the Pies now. You wouldn't entertain that at all. What is he? 28, 200 centimeters. I don't know.
The question would be, would he? I mean, again, that same question that I came up with before, which is, does he make up for what we lose with Jai in a roundabout way? Obviously, because he's a defender, Jai's a midfielder. I probably think not, to be honest.
And I'm not sold on it either. I'm just trying to throw out some,
some
options here. I mean, Frampton, is he? His last season and a bit has been quite good, but is he finding his role in that system and will come to another club and look like he did for the majority of his time at Collingwood potentially? So, look, there's a lot to work out with this, but it's really interesting, and we'll see how the Jai Simpkin stuff, and this is how the trade window operates. Why things come, they go. The last 5 days, I felt like no one's ever going to come to the North Melbourne Football Club again. And now I know that Leek Aleer is going to be the best defender we've ever had at our football club. So that's sort of how my brain's been going the last few days. And here we are trying to make sense of that. It's just so interesting how it's all going to play out. Before we move to the next topic, will Jai Simpkin be a North Melbourne player in 2026?
Oh, that's a tough one. I would say yes, just because I don't think Collingwood can give us what we want. That's probably what I would say. I would say if Collingwood had the capital, I think he goes. Yeah, and I think I think we've got the players to cover for him. To be honest.
Yeah, it's interesting.
So
I mean, look, down below in the comments, would you do the Bobby Hill deal? Would you take Bobby Hill in a pick for Simpkin, like a second or a third round pick or something like that? I'm probably going to say yes, but I also kind of want to say no because I don't want Jai Simpkin to leave the club. But Bobby Hill's an All-Smith medalist, and he's stepped up in massive games for a reason. Now, all the off-the-field stuff, and I've criticised him for the information I've been given. I've been a bit critical on maybe him not playing and fronting up when the team really needs him. I don't know what's going on in his personal life exactly, but from what we've all heard for the rumours with relationship problems, I don't think that's a reason not to turn up to work. So, I don't know if do we want players with any sort of baggage? We've been through that enough as a football club, but as a player on the football field, I'd probably I would say yes to Bobby Hill. So, look, I've got a theory to test on you here, Chief, and I hinted this to you at the start before we started recording. Charlie Spargo has come across to North Melbourne. That's official now. Welcome, Charlie, to North Melbourne Football Club. I've got a theory as to why we maybe targeted him. And hopefully, and I'm not saying this is the be-all and end-all, but people have been quite critical of Charlie Spargo. And it's not a needle mover. Let's not get too excited about Charlie Spargo, but let's not act like it's a bad signing that is just going to be another list clogger. Maybe it turns out that way, but I think what he can offer is a best 22 player like he was at the D's, knows how to play in those big games. My theory of this is I'm trying to think, and I was doing a Chief. I was sitting there and I was crunching the numbers in my brain, almost meditating about the North Melbourne Football Club. And I've said to myself, why is Charlie Spargo getting recruited to North Melbourne? Is that the player that we need? My theory, do you think that Charlie Spargo has been recruited to North Melbourne to play the role that we tried to get Harry Sheasel to at the start of last year, that half-forward role, that link-up, pushes to the mid but delivers to the forwards? He's going to fill that role because now Simpkin is potentially out. Sheasel goes into the midfield. Who plugs in straight into that exact type of what we wanted Harry Sheasel to do in half forward? Is it Charlie Spargo? Do you think that's why he's been recruited? Because I feel like that makes perfect sense. With Spargo's attributes, he's not the player Sheasel is. We know that, and that's not what I'm saying. But with his attributes of once he gets that football, his decision-making is great. His usage of the ball is great. Do you think he's going to play that role because Sheasel's going into the midfield now?
Yeah, for sure. I think that's exactly what he plays. The role that comes to mind is Brian Myers or Brad Close from Geelong, which are guys that act as a conduit between the midfield and forward. And they've got enough skill and enough clarity to be able to deliver the ball really effectively to the forwards, and also they've got the tank to run up and down. They're from contest to contest, and Charlie Spargo has that. I mean, you've summed up my feelings about it. It's not a needle mover by any stretch, but again, is he 23? Is he part of the 23 next year? Yes.
If he's fit, yeah.
Like he's better than the players we've got there at the moment. That's just fact. So in that same sort of position. So I think, and he's also played that in a premiership side.
For sure. And a key contributor forward in that premiership side too.
And his best 23 at Melbourne, it is a better team than us, or has historically been. So I think he comes in. Now, I think kind of the more broad discussion is around quite clearly having listened to Charlie talk during the week about how the trade went down.
Yes.
We've been trying to get Charlie Spargo to our club for like 3 years.
Crazy. Yeah.
Like this is longer than the Leek Aleer courting process.
Except we finished the deal.
Yeah, we were talking correct. We sat down, we gave a fair amount.
That's right. Fourth round compensation to the D's.
So my point is that it's strange to me that we've gone out and targeted like kind of what seems like not just a non-needle mover type player. We've taken, presumably 3 years to really court him, and I find that kind of funny, to be honest.
It took North Melbourne 3 years to woo Charlie Spargo. Wow.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know whether to like that or to hate that. You know what I mean?
But he's here now. And we have to love it.
We have to love it. Yeah. So I agree with you, Josh. I think that's the role he plays. I think, as I said, I think he's an upgrade. And by all accounts, he's a really good clubman. Like I'm a big proponent of culture.
For sure.
And I've said that in previous podcasts.
That's why the D's are where they are.
Exactly. Well, I mean, Stephen May is part of that culture as well, I guess. But he is apparently a very good clubman, and if we can create this culture of learning and also success, a slow success, and standards, I think that is a step in the right direction. I think he does bring a little bit of that to the table. So.
Well, look, let's hope Charlie Spargo can start the year off well and maybe put some of the doubters at bay a little bit, because just because it's not the sexiest signing ever doesn't mean it's an ugly signing. So, he can be a key contributor on a good team, hopefully. And when we get there, hopefully he's still there kicking that ball straight to Nick Larkey and the reincarnation of Wayne Carey, Cooper Trembath. One more thing we've got on the agenda tonight before we finish this up is James Rowbottom has not been linked to North Melbourne at all, but has been touted around there as someone, maybe if we were going after that Marcus Windhager type, is apparently looking to potentially look at moving from Sydney. Is this someone that you think we should have a look at? Obviously played in very successful sides. Let me just look up his age really quickly. Oh, okay, he's younger than I thought. So 25, 186 centimetres, the perfect height for the North Melbourne Football Club. A defensive midfielder, played in a club with great culture. We've got a lot of ex-Swans on our list. Is this someone, do you think we need that role in the club, for one? And two, is it someone that you think we should even just have a look at?
Look, you had me interested with this podcast, Josh, but now you've got my attention. Now that we're talking about James
So you're
Rowbottom.
telling me for 50 minutes you've been only half invested?
Half interested, but now I'm really interested.
Yeah, okay. Now we're looking.
Now that we've got a Rowbottom. I really like Rowbottom, actually. And I've been a proponent of his a fan of his for quite a long time. He's a hard player. Like, he's not a super skilled player. He reminds me a little bit of a poor man's Josh Dunkley. Okay. And I've talked in the past about how much I like that Josh Dunkley role. He's not a tagger per se. He's probably more of a cooler, but what he can do is he's play midfield with defensive bias. He's the first one back helping defense. He's the guy who sweeps. He tackles a lot. He gives a hard edge to the midfield. I like that, to be honest. And a lot of people out there would say, well, we're going all right for the midfield. We actually don't have that sort of player in our midfield.
That's why we want to win.
We don't. Yeah, we don't have it exactly. We don't have a defensive bias midfielder in there. And that's one of the reasons why I think we get beaten in the midfield and we concede so many scores from stoppage and transition. So I think he would be actually a really valuable player. And I guess the question again comes down to sort of how much we'd have to give up for him and how much he's after. But I actually think it's a good acquisition, to be honest.
I mean, on paper, absolutely. I guess there's questions then of if he comes in. I don't know off the top of my head. I can't remember exactly why he's looking for a move away, but I wouldn't assume he wants to go out of like a midfield rotation. We've got an issue with that with Jai Simpkin right now, right? So if Rowbottom was going to come into North Melbourne hypothetically, who goes out of that midfield rotation? I think it's probably Time Parker does. If he doesn't, I'm not concerned about it. But if he could play around the ground more, that half forward role, that goal kicking half forward that can go and do the stoppages around the ground, I'd be happier. I've definitely got tunnel vision for the Sheasel, Wardlaw, LDU midfield. Powell found his way out of that. Simpkin is wanting more midfield time, can't get it. If we bring in a Rowbottom, especially, I don't see that happening personally if Simpkin doesn't go. If Simpkin does go, then I would love to go after a player like that. But do we have enough time to make that move? Do you think it's worth him coming over to North Melbourne? How do you think he would see it from his perspective if Brady Rawlings gave him a buzz?
I mean, he's a Melbourne boy, James Rowbottom. He went to Xavier. So I suspect he wants to come back to Melbourne. That's kind of how I read it. I also sometimes you think about what's been going on at that football club and what it means for some of the players there. And obviously with Horse, Longmire leaving last year and Cox taking over, I think there's some guys who just feel like they're on the outer. And I think Rowbottom is one of them. I think Ollie Florent is one of them as well.
We wanted him in the draft when
these are guys that were staples under Horst Longmire, who potentially are finding themselves with either reduced minutes or Florent played a lot of VFL last year. So there are guys out there who potentially just don't fit the system, and that's kind of what I suspect is happening at Sydney. And I think Rowbottom's thinking, maybe I'll just go back home to Melbourne, and I can just finish off my career there.
Potentially. I mean, look, 25 years old, he's barely getting started in his career, really. I mean, he's just coming into his prime. So there's plenty of football left. I mean, he's averaging nearly 7.5 tackles a game, which is just... I wonder if there's a player averaging more, to be honest. That off just thinking off the top of my head is an obscene amount of tackles, it feels like, to average across a season. Obviously in the elite category there. Do we need another 16 touches a game type player? I guess if he strengthens the midfield in that rotation, then absolutely. But, he's played every game for the Swans for, 4 years straight. He played 23 games in 2025, so almost all of them. That to me doesn't suggest he's on the outer, but, potentially wants to come home to Melbourne. Unfortunately, when players want to come home to Melbourne, where they're probably 9 of 9, that, of the teams in Melbourne that they're looking to come to and hope that give them a call. But, I like it on paper. I worry about it's funny how we are as fans, isn't it? Where the second we're linked to a midfielder that we don't want, we got too many, we don't need them. And as soon as Windhager or Rowbottom or, someone else of that ilk will come along, we go, absolutely, let's get them into the club. Almost like you with Leek Aleer saying, get him away from me, until he goes, hey guys, I might actually be available now. And you're like, please, sir, please come down to Arden Street. So look, it's interesting. This is the life of a fan, and that's what we're trying to represent here. But look, if James Rowbottom wants to come down to North Melbourne and we can make it work, especially if we lose Simpkin, I don't see why not. Luke Parker, get on the phone. Jacob Constanti should be getting on the phone. He can do something and, get James Rowbottom down to North Melbourne. Unless he's pals with Toby Pink and Dylan Stevens too. We're basically just the Swans, aren't we? Are we South Melbourne?
Yes, Sydney Light. What are you, Josh? You're the barber. You are a barber.
I am.
What do you make of James Rowbottom's hair? Because it's kind of got that. What is that kind of band that people with long hair have in there? They're soccer players. That's kind of what he rocks.
Well, you've got the Geelong Cats down there. Every second player's got a skinny little headband. The thing I like about James Rowbottom's hair is that, unlike the Geelong private schoolboy haircut, theirs is a bob, right? They're just slicing it off at the bottom like a whippersnipper's gone past them at head height for some reason. Where James Rowbottom has layers. He's got layers, he's got volume, he's got bounce. And that's what I like about his hair. And if you're wrapping that beautiful head of hair up in a headband, that's completely fine. But if you're getting your hair at shoulder length and you're chopping it straight off at the bottom and there's no layering, I'm not interested. I don't want a person like that at my football club. So half of the Geelong team for the last 15 years and Harley Reid, off you go. Don't even bother coming down to Arden Street ever, because I'm sure they're begging to come. That's my assessment of his hair. I was going to do player haircut reviews at one point for some extra content. I need to do this next year because Tom Powell, my friend Tom Powell, was rocking the emo fringe. I didn't know if he was doing an emo Jimmy Butler type thing for the days, because if anyone goes on the North website and has a look at Tom Powell's hair, he looks like me in 2009. So it's fantastic stuff. It really throws me back to a different time. Stickly by Attack Attack. There's some good ones for you. Any behind Crimson Eyes fans out there, you let me know. Old school, Ronnie Radke, Escape the Fate. Ashley, baby, you make me feel so alive. This is my little emo heart really coming out in this safe space, which is the Further North podcast. And Chief, you're in that safe space with me, mate. We're riding this thing together.
My eyes just glazed over, Josh. You're rolling off those names. I know My Chemical Romance. Is that you? My Chemical Romance?
Well, yeah, that's maybe one of the. I tried to go a little bit deeper than just the My Chemical Romance, but look, they've got some bangers too. Helena would probably be my favourite song by them, or potentially Ghost of You is another great track. In my band back in Tasmania, we did play a deep cut off the Black Parade called Disenchanted. that's actually their best song, to be fair. So all you MyChem fans, get your top 3 MyChem songs down there. Don't just give me the hits. Give me underground ones so I know you're real. This is the type of content that when you get an hour into a podcast, and if the listeners of the Further North podcast are still tuning in, post a black heart in the comment section, because that's how I know you got to the end of the podcast. You guys are always very good at that. And shout out really quickly. I was walking to my car from work a couple of nights ago, and I was crossing the road, and a car sort of, goes to turn into the street that I was about to walk across it. The window comes down, and a lady was in there and goes, "Josh," and I'm thinking, what's happening right now? And she goes, "Go North. I love the pod." And it was really, really nice. So I don't know if I caught her name, but if you are listening, that was a fun moment and made me feel like an incredibly small minor celebrity, a Jules Lund, if you will. So thank you very much for that very fun interaction. You're a legend. I don't think we've got anything more to chat about here, Chief. I think we've covered all the hot North Melbourne topics. Get down to the W on Saturday night as well. I'll be down there at Princess Park to watch us absolutely dismantle Richmond down there. We're going to watch Prime, Blaheen, Bogue just cause havoc. Vicky Wall's going to give out 3 concussions. And I tell you what, Ash Riddell might have 60 touches. I'm not too sure. But get down there. I'll be down there. And if you find me, come and say hello. We'll try and cover the W on next week's pod and do a little bit of a review. If you haven't listened to the Erica O'Shea interview as well, Erica was kind enough to give me some of her time. And it's a really interesting interview. Honestly, I did post about it saying, even if you're not a W fan, if you're a football person, you'll really enjoy it, because talking about getting scouted from the all-Irish Gaelic team when she was 18, getting an opportunity to get scouted from a sport she'd never really heard of to come over to Australia was really, really interesting stuff. So give that a listen. But anyway, Chief, thank you for coming on. I've rambled enough. We'll talk to you very, very soon like we always do.
Thanks, Josh. Appreciate the time. See you guys.